we've all been ghosted in life, in love, and definitely in business.
What the heck do we actually do? Like, how do we dive in? How do we connect?
So I did this, and the results were kind of interesting because I wanted to put the ghosted guest and the unseen to the test. You know what I mean?
Still family-owned company, not franchised, not corporate, not public.
But then once you decide to live by it, you live by it. And the code that I decided to live by was,
we need to do the same thing with our businesses when it comes to,
otherwise you're going to repeat the same issues that you had before.
And yeah, as a byproduct, that happens to be a really good business decision too.
If I knew that effort would result in me tripling my business,
it's going to make sure you have a line out the door and a wait list and not, empty tables and too much staff that's twiddling their thumbs.
Then somebody has to step up, be the bigger player, and change the game and see what happens.
Would that be stronger, stickier, more profitable than us just trying to do that at scale?
And I realized that if I was ever going to make a difference, that I had to do events that everyone behind the table, if they were having fun, guess what? The big question is this a real problem, or is it just something we don't care about?
All right, so welcome to another edition of Ghosted Guest. I'm Gabriel Ryan.
I'm Brady Lowe.
And we're going to dive in so you don't get ghosted. Because we've been ghosted.
Yeah, we've all been ghosted in life, in love, and definitely in business.
Yeah. So I know we were chatting just like a little bit before this, but I think it would be great to bring the people that is either watching with us along this journey with us to really like, why are we here? What's Ghosted Guest all about? We can kind of maybe share a little bit of a glimpse of where we're going on this thing. And then I know you really well, but there's some more that I want to know. I want to like peel back the layers of Brady and understand kind of how you've gotten to this point. Cause I think there are some lessons in there for the folks that are kind of coming along this journey with us. I know for me, I've always found a lot of just value in getting to kind of roll up my sleeves with other entrepreneurs and understand their journeys and stories, being able to share mine as well, seeing kind of where the crossover might be, where I could learn from some of their wins, from some of their lessons and vice versa. But before we go there, yeah, why Ghosted Guest? Why are we here? Where are we going?
It was great. I was having a conversation today with somebody in the hospitality industry, and she just said it simply. I don't think things have really gotten any better since COVID. And I can't really tell why or what. It's not like there's not enough people in the industry. It's not like, it's not like the hospitality industry is forgotten what it feels like to be attentive and to be in love with their job or their service or their craft. I don't think that's the question, but she says it's just different. And, and she's like, it just feels sometimes that people aren't trained right away, or they don't know what it feels like to be, on the other side of the table, or maybe it's that their people are too overworked. But at the end of the day, I think I've just been part of the hospitality industry for so long, and feeling ghosted or feeling unseen makes me feel like my money is just not worth it, or like my time isn't worth it. And if the hospitality industry has an opportunity to show its face and be different, I think making your guests feel better, be seen, and unghosted before they walk in the door is kind of the new trick. And especially with AI, and what did I think about AI? Let's just talk about Instagram, Facebook. It's like some days Facebook are really cool, and then the next 2 years you don't even think about it, But there's still people out there like your mom or your cousin who are using it, and you just ghost them. And then there's your guest at the restaurant or at your boutique or at your retail company, and you're just not paying attention to them, and you think they should just show up and, get the glad handing at the store or on site. And that's just not enough right now. So I think we're here because I believe there's a cry for people who want to feel seen and don't want to be ghosted, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Because it does seem like, I mean, I remember during COVID, but there was a lot that we didn't know about what was going on, and I'll be quite honest. There was a period of time where it was kind of nice. You could kind of use it as an excuse. It was like if you wanted to stay in and didn't want to go out for plans, you're like, oh, like we can't can't go out. And then as we were all stuck in our houses and distancing and doing all this stuff for an overwhelming period of time, I think there became this desire of like, oh, people wanted to go to concerts again. People wanted to go out to live events. They wanted to connect in a different way. And, like you said, you would think that that would have meant we would have kind of like leaned in more to that. But I think we had past 15, 20 years of internet, internet 2.0 with social media, with how things were already trending, and we were becoming more and more isolated, more and more glued to our phones, to where maybe we just weren't equipped to do it, and so we're leaning on these old habits, but with this newfound desire of like, I want to connect, I want to get into community, and that's only, I think that desire is only increasing more, and at the same time, it's getting harder because we're having to fight against technology, internet, social media, all of those things. And so the call out is, okay, um, if you're getting ghosted by your guests and or you're ghosting them, what the heck do we actually do? Like, how do we dive in? How do we connect? How do we give people the kind of hospitality, the kind of experience, that we would want for ourselves?
Well, I think in the nature of all business, understanding that the problem is there and being aware of it is number one, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said the magic words right there. If I'm ghosting people and in return my business is ghosting them and I'm being ghosted and I'm just becoming aware of this situation, then somebody has to step up, be the bigger player, and change the game. And I think the people who are aware are going to be the first ones to make a change. And making the change is typically with education, training, systems, automation. Otherwise, you're going to repeat the same issues that you had before, right? That's just standard business model. So I think right now we're just, seeing kind of the effects of what takes place once everybody goes from a great place pre-COVID to a dark place post-COVID. And is this a result of more doom scrolling, more black screen, more disconnection, more disengagement, more like just, comfort of being by yourself than being the one who reaches out to say, hey, I got a really nice thing to say about you. And instead of making a compliment about you today, I just rather do nothing.
Right.
Like because it's easier and people don't know and haven't experienced the reward of what it feels like to go out and give 100 compliments in a day to your customers.
Yeah, you're
Like,
spot on. Yep.
how many times have I haven't done it. I'm trying. It's not easy. It's work. I mean, you want to lose 100 pounds. It's work. It's not going to happen overnight. And it's not,
Right.
there's going to be a struggle and there's going to be pain in it, but there's also going to be some sort of reward. And I think that's what people are afraid of is like what the reward looks like, when everybody's talking to you and you don't know how to like how do I turn off the phone now? Like it's creating something that we're not used to. And we have the ability to have it in front of us. We just don't know how to do it.
Right. Yeah, and especially because I think this whole the mix in with technology and social and those pieces. I mean, I'm a big proponent of automation, of using the right kind of tech, but I will tell my clients all day long, every day of the week, don't automate what you should systematize. And what I mean by that is there are things that the robots should do, And there's the things that only Brady can do, that specific outreach. It's why, when I was at Nordstrom, they made us write 5 handwritten thank you notes every day before we left for the day. Like, sure, could the company have sent that off to a print on demand company that would have like put the person's name on it and sent the card off, and it would have gone to them and they would have been able to do it at scale? Sure, absolutely. But because I did it, and because you could tell it was imperfect and it was done by a person, there's that personal connection. And then you do that 5 times a day for every team member over hundreds and thousands of employees. That builds a lot of connection. I mean, another company you look at, my very first job in high school
But in
was
that, like, and hold on to the high school there, but for that, as an operator, that strikes me with fear, right? I've got 30 employees writing different styles of letters out to hundreds of people every day. Like, and I think I'm going to like be trustful of like that message and what that is my brand. You know what I mean? So
right.
it's, but I don't know what it's going to create. So I live in fear, right? Now, if I knew that effort would result in me tripling my business
Mm-hmm.
with personal and relationship equity in these customers who will feel that they'll be loyal to my brand for an extra 3 years for every letter that they get because it's a case study truth, then I'm thinking about it differently. And I'm like, I want that. But,
Right.
you know what I mean? Just as an operator. So it's very interesting because, yes, that's what we're talking about as making people feel seen and appreciated. But for operators, well, if I can't do it myself and it wasn't my idea, then I'm afraid to see what the results were going to be if I amplify this thing to the moon, you know?
Right. Yeah. Cause you're asking yourself, like, is it even the right strategy in that sense? Cause now we're talking, ideas and strategy. And anytime, you know, we bring an idea to the table, or my business partner brings an idea to the table, and Jeremy, the first question I almost always ask is, all right, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Which I think is a really great place to start, because when we know the problem we're trying to solve, so if the problem is one of connection, making our patrons, our customers, our clients feel connected to us. And how do we do that? Well, by actually freaking connecting to them. Yes, like, we want to just have a human experience. We want to give them an incredible experience, something that they'll tell others about. And yeah, as a byproduct, that happens to be a really good business decision too. It's going to make you more money. It's going to build your customer base. It's going to make sure you have a line out the door and a wait list, and not, empty tables and too much staff that's twiddling their thumbs. But I think it starts with understanding, okay, well, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Because if we're clear on that, now understand there may be some fear and trepidation around, like, what is the right strategy, but it's a whole lot easier to find the right strategy when we like really hammer in on the specific problem. And it usually starts at a higher level like that of, oh, okay, we don't have enough people coming in as before, or we don't have enough events booked. We're not selling enough product. Okay, but like, let's peel back, like, why is that a problem? Like, what's the actual problem under the hood? Like, you could take your car into the mechanic and be like, hey, I'm starting to hear a funky sound. Like, the problem is the sound. Well, the problem's not the sound. The sound is just a symptom of what might be going on. And what's the mechanic going to do next? Well, they're going to open the hood. They're going to pop it open. They're going to run some tests. They're going to ask you more questions. And we need to do the same thing with our businesses when it comes to connecting and not ghosting our clients so they don't ghost us. Ghosting is simply a symptom. And what Nordstrom did really well is they realized, okay, well, what's the problem we got to solve? Well, we need to be able to compete with all the other retailers out there, these big box stores, these other department stores that are probably competing on price and inventory and experience in the store, maybe the actual design and aesthetic of the store, the quality of the products. And they realize, okay, like, one way that we can compete that nobody would be able to match us. What if we put the relationship, we didn't own the relationship as the company, as Nordstrom, but what if we actually put that in the hands of our team members? And yes, that can be scary, but like, that's the bet they were willing to make, because they understood the problem was, if we can create, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 individual relationships, would that be stronger, stickier, more profitable than us just trying to do that at scale? And it absolutely worked.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a good point. Is this a problem, right? Is ghosting guests or making them feel unseen on a digital platform a true problem, or will it just? And I think I'm a 20-year vet in the game, right? I mean, I've been around. I tried opening a restaurant. COVID knocked it down, along with you know hundreds of thousands, and I've seen every type of operator deal with every type of social media that's been here since 2008 when we really started moving, the needle in the industry with some movements of ours. But, I think I've watched how people interact with social media. I've seen how it makes me feel when, you spend time and get interested in something and then there's just no response. Like I want to take my wife to a special dinner tonight, so I'm going to DM them and I get nothing. Like, is that the same way? Is Instagram as important as your phone? I mean, your phone is just a device for someone to call you on, whereas Instagram and your website are places where people spend time and experience building trust with you. And then imagine they just pick up the phone and call you and they're like, hey, and you're just like, what do you want? Like, don't expect anything from us. We might like one of you when you come in tonight for dinner and give you a table. Like, it's just, as thinking about this as a problem, like, is ghosting the guest so rooted in the very beginning of the process that it is a problem, or is it just a vanity that we're talking about? And
That's a good question.
And here's what I wouldn't invest passion, time, and energy into talking about something that I didn't think is almost in every single outfit that I have touched in the last 6 years. Right? I've had, and here's my point. The people that I love, the people that I engage with on social media, on Instagram, they reply back to me. The businesses that I've tried to interact with that never reply back to me, they're a dime a dozen. And I can't even name one restaurant that I have reached out to or I have an engagement system with where I feel like we have a relationship. And I would want to know who that person is that's behind the window or behind the curtain, who's doing all of this magical work, making people feel warm and welcome before they even book a reservation. So I think it's a true issue of like, the hotel systems, retail, I think, and it's not like we need brain surgeons and honestly, I think what the average rate for people who do social media management is that we should expect a whole lot more from them, and from paying people month in, month out for 15 years. And I'm talking hundreds of thousands of, like I've invested millions of dollars in PR and marketing, right? Like there's no doubt. And nobody's ever brought this to our attention. No PR person said, hey, let me do social media this week and I'm going to reach out to every single person that touches us and pay them a compliment and not ask them for anything. I'm just going to show that we see them and thank them. And then I'm going to go back to the very beginning of my social media. Your social media, like you have 1,000 followers, Mr. Restaurant. I'm going to go back to the very beginning. You just started as a boutique, purse company. I'm going to go back to your 500 followers and just say thank you for following since day one. And just troll all of the posts that we have and all the communications and just make it better. I've never had any engagement person, but they'll send me a bill at the end of the month and I'll be like, what did you do?
What's their answer?
Well, they didn't do that, and like, but it's not a problem unless we wanted that. Right. And Are there brands out there doing it right now that are doing an A+ job? And I don't know, maybe that's what the influencer world is all about, actually just being engaged with people. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a
Where do,
farther reach, but the big question is this a real problem, or is it just something we don't care about? But I don't know. I think I like getting compliments.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do people like getting compliments? Do people like being seen? Do people like it when they get a message back that's maybe unexpected? Did people like getting a thank you note when they didn't feel entitled to one, and every other department store they shopped at wouldn't send them one? Well, yeah, of course they did. And
So
so
like,
why wouldn't they?
yeah, I mean, like if I looked at Gabe's Instagram right now, right, and I go to your profile, there's a lot of talking heads, but you know, like you went on an amazing trip recently. Like, how was it? I mean, I hope you guys had a great time. You know, it looks like you're doing a lot to help people. Thanks, Gabe.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, if that came from a future retailer or a company that you just decided to follow, I mean, you know what? That took me like 10 seconds.
yeah,
And you just wrote a book. Congrats, man. Like, that is all it takes to make someone feel the effects of being seen, right? And you
sure,
do that once, twice, and all of a sudden one day you post a picture of a glass of bourbon or your new favorite coffee, and they say, "Oh my gosh, we just changed our coffee provider. I think you'll come have a free class." And you're
I'd
just
show
like,
up.
right?
I
Absolutely.
um I want to take us a step back. And I
Yeah.
mentioned I want to dive into kind of your story and how like we even got here. How did you? Because I think to get to the level that you're talking about, which is interesting. It's the idea of I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have enough time. I don't know who said that. If it was like Mark Twain or Abraham Lincoln, it was one of those guys. But it's this idea of to get to the simplicity of a problem and an opportunity, I think actually takes a tremendous amount of time, heartache, experience to get to that, which I know you have a lot invested in the hospitality industry, literally in dollars and cents, in sweat equity, in time spent toe to toe, in time giving people experiences. I know you did that for us with our company and our mastermind earlier this year. Everybody that was at that small little event walked away and said, I've never had an experience like that before. And I mean, if you looked at it on the surface, all we did was eat steak and lobster and had some drinks. But beneath that, there was something different with an experience. So, what I'm really curious is like, how did Brady get here? How did you get to this point? And by the way, happy birthday! Just turned 50, big deal, half a century, rocking it, looking as good as ever.
You never supposed to
Where, yeah,
how old.
how'd you get started? So was that, I wasn't supposed to say how old you were. Whoops. So yeah. Well, see, everyone was like, oh man, how old is this guy? He's got to be like, 36, 37. I don't know. The beard looks good. No, if I had a beard like that, I mean, it would be like full gray. Anyways,
Oh,
how'd you, how, how'd you get into hospitality? Where did this all begin?
I think I stole my brother's ID so I could go buy cigars. Like because he was smoking cigars, and it was just a level up in game. I mean, anybody could go outside, have a cigarette, but to sit in the room with some guys, have a cigar, you had to know what you were smoking. It was a status element. If you smoked the coolest stick in the room, you were on a vibe, right? And you were but one of the interesting guys in the room. If you smoked a Swisher Sweet, you weren't too interesting.
Noob.
So, but nothing against the Swisher Sweet crowds. I mean,
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
I've
What's funny
definitely.
is like sometimes those things regress back to that, right? And it's like then that actually becomes the status symbol. I think Pabst Blue Ribbon is probably a perfect example of that. To drink a PBR, I mean, granted they did win the Blue Ribbon like
Yeah. Well,
150 years ago, but still.
The champagne of beer is the same thing,
Miller High
like
Life. Yeah, there you go.
it's masses and numbers. And, but it's interesting that that's one of the things that I think about, right? Like going back to what was it that you started to see as kind of like people taking notice of where you are, what you're doing, and then how you make an impact in the room, right? So I always loved cooking. When you started cooking in, a young age and you started putting food out and people were interested in it, that was a very hospitable thing to do. As you started to see other people around the table, like I think one of the comments was, if we sit down to dinner, the first thing I don't want to hear is how good it is. Like someone's barely taking a bite of food and putting, this is so good. Like just because you cooked it, like I want to see people like really appreciate things and the other night just say thanks for a meal. I think that's hospitality to me and taking care of individuals. And, in some of these building blocks, I think you start to create your own journey. And my journey started to take a curve when, I basically went to Korea and there was a language barrier. And I spent a summer there doing military welfare resources for kids in, high school camp or grade school camp. And I was in college, and the way people took me in when I didn't speak their language, that was hospitality to me, right? And then coming back and getting into my career, I noticed one time at an event, I went up to this guy who's pouring these really great wines. I knew cigars and wine at this time. I'm about, 24 years old, just moved to Atlanta. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, dude, how's it going? Like, events looks great. It's a little hot outside. I'm like, dude, you're pouring one of my favorite wines. And I looked down at his bus tub. It's just filled with water. And I'm like, how is he? He's like, dude, this sucks. He's like, I don't have any ice. My wine is hot. Nothing was where it's supposed to be. It just snapped right there that if that guy is not having fun at the table and I'm one guest, then he's just going to say that to X amount of guests all day long until the event basically flops. And I realized that if I was ever going to make a difference, that I had to do events that everyone behind the table, if they were having fun, guess what? Everyone on the other side of the table were having fun. So hospitality is living on the other side of the mirror and having as much fun to make it look like play, even though it is work, right? And you're having fun doing what you do, and then everyone else gets to enjoy. So there's a craft of like putting the work in up front and doing the reps so that when people show up in the door, that they get the experience that you hope they wanted to. It's a little bit more work up front. It's a system, it's a model. But then once you decide to live by it, you live by it. And the code that I decided to live by was I wanted to give people first-time experiences all year, every day, anytime I could. So every event had to have a pairing. It had to have some kind of experience between like pairing you with wine and cheese. And that was 8 years of my life dedicated when I started Taste Network, was dedicated to pairing wine and cheese in some of the kind of coolest locations and private cellars that I could even fathom that I was doing as a kid from Iowa growing up, doing these wine tastings, drinking things that I never should have access to, and pairing them with amazing people and amazing experiences and showing them how great their wine could be if you paired it with really cool cheese from small family farmers. And it just, you get rewarded for being hospitable. So Taste Network continued to grow and grow and grow into a point where I was like, all right, I'm kind of tired of this, but the economy took a big hit in 2008. And that's when I started that's when I started the Cochambeau 5 tour. But before that, Taste Network started in 2001. By 2008, I had become a wine and cheese expert. And then 2008 hit, and then it was time to start a 20-city culinary tour and build a brand and a movement around small family farming and what it is to eat artisan and support local, like no one had ever done anywhere in the US. And every chef pretty much would say yes to one of the hardest challenges in the kitchens today, which was, hey, do you mind if I drop off a 225-pound whole animal heritage breed pig from a small family farmer who doesn't have a cell phone, who's going to drop it off 4 hours late and expect your kitchen and team to break it down within 5 days and then serve it to 500 to 600 people on a Sunday afternoon within 90 minutes and sell it all? Like, you're going to get rid of the entire pig. It's going to take you all week to get rid of it in 90 minutes. And then be judged by your peers and friends, and everyone's going to vote on the best bite of the day and who did the best job cooking that whole animal. You want to do it? And they say yes, because challenge.
How in the heck how'd you convince people to say yes to that?
Because people love a challenge, and they love a challenge when there's a cause. And when you want to build community-driven events, which I was good at. I mean, that's what I was doing for up through 2008. But there was no single red thread through it, right? There was no like continuity. And I was able to focus on one thing until I succeeded, which was the Cochon Via 5 tour, to the point where our 10-year tour, our 10th anniversary tour was crazy. Like, we had accomplished and worked with about every single chef that was really into whole animal and into supporting small family farmers across the country. And we had built a network. So I went from wine and cheese to farmers and sponsors network, and Taste Network became, kind of like I would say, unknown but unknown in the hospitality industry. But what I touched had this very similar mirrored hospitality. Like, if you take care of the people who are doing or participating at the event, then everybody who comes to the event will also have a good time. If they sniff out the person serving you a bite at a food festival is having a shitty day, guess what? That bite ain't going to taste as good. There's no way in hell it is going to happen. And you've been there, So that was, that's the stretch of Hallmark hospitality, is being able to build relationship equity in 10 years with 10,000 kitchens a year, 10,000 culinary chefs, somms, and bartenders coming through, and still walking out feeling like they gave their time for a good cause. That's community building events.
It reminds me of, it's the classic, you're in the plane, you're getting ready to go on an epic trip, and the flight attendants give you this safety spiel. And what do they always say? They say, put on your mask before you put on someone next to you. And especially like as a parent with kids, you hear that the first time, you're like, that's kind of crazy that I would put on my mask before I put on my daughter's mask or my son's mask. And then you realize, like, oh, well, yeah, if something happens, shit hits the fan and I'm incapacitated, I can't help them, that's not going to be any good. And you mentioned something, really one of the first times that we met, and I know we started this conversation about the idea of the ghosted guest, which is when they ghost us or vice versa. But I know who your heart is actually for are the people behind the scenes, front of house and back of house, because you've seen, tell me a little bit about like what you've seen in that journey in hospitality and who's been, I guess, neglected and taken advantage of, and all those things that, like, if we solve that, because I think you've tapped into something that is kind of the big domino that, like, we're like, every brand out there is focused on product and what's kind of like what everybody else can see in the marketplace. But I think you've tapped into something where, like, hey, actually, if we fix this other thing over here, and you literally just said it, then the rest of it takes care of itself, and it's the people behind the scenes. How and where did you see that starting to show up in hospitality, where the people on the, like the experience that you had with, the restaurant owner, where you're the only one in there and he's telling you about all the problems? Like, where did, it sounds like that was one of the first experiences, but then actually working in the industry, where did you start to see this pop up?
It really became evident when individuals would, there just wouldn't be any trust. And what I mean by trust is that you're a chef operator, chef owner, head bartender, lead server. These are just the people in hospitality. I mean, even people who ran liquor brands and wineries and wines tasting rooms and like big brand experiences, and that their hands were held, right? They knew it was right, but they didn't know why they were being told no. And that creates a sense of like, I really don't care anymore. Like, I'm here working. I came here because I thought I was going to be in a environment that was going to be good and safe and a growing place, and I had all best intention. And then something flips the trigger to the point where you don't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that became evident again and again, where you start, and then the transient movement behind the hospitality industry compounds that, right? And you know, there's a very interesting environment that's, you know, I mean, on one side you've got this celebratory, you know, beautiful, romantic, culinary, hospitality, white glove, experiential, taste, feel, vibe. Bring my, you know, girl, go see the bathroom. Look how pretty the bathrooms are. They spent millions on this place, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know. And then there's just feels like there's just a complete disconnect. Like you can walk into a restaurant with money in your hand and go to the bar and just be like, hey, can I get a drink? And the bartender just acts like he doesn't even see you. Like,
Mm.
I don't know how you go from highly attentive, celebratory experiences to completely nameless situations in an industry. So I don't know. It's a hard question because there's it's a very dyadic environment, right? I mean, there's great things and there's rough things, and people don't talk about the rough things. They don't talk about the tools they're missing. They don't talk about what they need. They don't talk how to get it. There's not systems of free, like, and systems of free are like, you know, kind of new today with, you know, the coaches community, et cetera, like people just giving away like free education and wanting people to, you know, excel. And the more people excelling, the better the system gets as a whole. But that's a very hard thing to see in the hospitality industry, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
so um, people know how to write books and they know how to give fireside chats, but you know, it's scattered compared to other industries, you know?
Well, yeah, because the question is, you know, how do you operationalize it? So there's, you know, first off, we got to know what the problem is. When we're clear on that, then we go, okay, well, what's the strategy? And again, I think the strategy can be very simple. It's just like, you know, be a human. It's what I tell my kids, you know, do good work, be good to work with. If you do those two things, you'll probably be fine, you know? But then the question is that one, like in whether you have, you know, a single location or, you know, like here in Nashville, we got a bunch of distilleries and things, you know, some are bigger, some are, you know, family owned and smaller, small staff. So, but regardless, you know, if you've got some staff, it's like, okay, how do I infuse this into them in a way that's not, you know, overly corporate and stale, but also still has some clear, like, this is what we stand for, this is how we do things. And that's where I think, you know, companies like Nordstrom, and I was going to share like the first company I ever worked for, so in high school, was In-N-Out Burger. I loved it because at the time minimum wage was like $4 an hour and they were paying 7.25, I think. I was like, sweet, sign me up. I loved to eat it in and out. I was like, this will be a cool job, better than maybe working at McDonald's. And speaking of those two companies, you look at the difference in both of those companies and their trajectory over the last, whatever, 30 years. In-N-Out's done a really good job, I think, at kind of keeping its culture and its roots. Still family-owned company, not franchised, not corporate, not public, still owned by, now I think it's passed down now to the granddaughters running it. They're actually moving headquarters out here to Nashville. And I'll never forget, like day one, when I show up, one of the things they infuse into you is they call it QFC, quality, friendliness, cleanliness. Those were like the core things that they wanted us to embody. And it wasn't just some thing in a handbook to like check off. I'm, 43, almost 44 years old now, whatever. I can't do the math on that. 25 years later, still remember that. And because it was like, hey, this is how we treat people. This is how we want people to feel when they come to In-N-Out. We're not fast food quality. We are quality food fast. And we gave people this experience. And then you look at the opposite of that. You look at a company like McDonald's, again, very profitable. They're doing just fine. There's a McDonald's on every street corner, but what have they done more recently? They've like actually distanced the staff. They've leaned into, okay, we're going to have the iPads and everything's on the mobile ordering. And sure, they're like adapting with technology, but have completely removed the human component, which is something that I think Ray Kroc saw when he first met the McDonald's brothers, and he saw them doing something in food service that had never been done before, which was, being able to create this kind of system of, giving people that experience more quickly. So like two companies completely going different directions. And so I think there's a lesson in there in terms of, you don't have to have 150 stores and locations, maybe like In-N-Out does, but there's something to be learned of. There's kind of a grassroots, like, what do we actually care about? What's the experience we want to provide? Which again, is just simple. It's being human.
Yeah.
And then two of, okay, how do we get buy-in from our team on that to show them that, one, it's going to be better for the team first and foremost. Like you said, put your mask on before helping someone else. It's going to be good for them. It's going to be good for your patrons and your customers. And then ultimately, if those two things work, the business is going to grow. It's going to make a bunch of money. You're going to be able to stay in the game and do the thing that you love doing for a long period of time.
Yeah, but I think you nailed it on the head. If you work somewhere, you have to see the results. You have to witness it, right? You have to be the one who writes the letter, who pays the compliment, who gets a praise when they do a good job, either on customer service or serving a table, or you get a big fat tip. Like, if you get their praise, that's a culture, right? And I think at In-N-Out, you're seeing a lot different style of culture and praise than you would at a McDonald's, from the type of people who work there to the type of culture they're doing, like illustrating as part of their workforce, et cetera. But I don't know. I think it's a very interesting space that people have to feel the efforts of their work given back to them in some type of praise and reward, and that's never going to change. And, does hospitality provide that? Does retail provide that? I guess the big question is like, as we're on this journey, like, we have to define who our hospitality world is. And I think, for me, hospitality is anybody who has a website or Instagram or Facebook that pushes messages out and that you expect to reply if you ask them a question. I think that's the hospitality industry today. Service-based, service industry, hospitality, it's all going to sound the same, Now, there's gas stations. Would that fall in? Well, if the gas station has an Instagram and a website and looks something like Buc-ee's, then of course we're going to expect some type of engagement, right?
Right.
And if you're just a 7-Eleven or a Shell down the street corner, probably not going to expect much. But if you did get a lot from them, you would remember it. So it's kind of an odd give and take right now. And I think one of the elements of challenge, which I want to, kind of share with you, which was an interesting exploratory for me, was I took the top 10 brands in my life and I went out to them and reached out. These are the companies that I have spent the most money with in the last year, right? Recently got a Tesla. I have an 8-sleep bed. I take Metamucil every day. Athletic Greens. You get the picture, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't calling up Charmin, but let's just, think about the top 10 brands in your life or your family's life, and then just reach out to them and pay them a compliment for what it means for you to use them, why you like using them in your daily life, and see what happens. So I did this, and the results were kind of interesting because I wanted to put the ghosted guest and the unseen test, you know what I mean, and see what's going on. Yeah. And I got a long list of people I'm going to reach out to over the course of this, podcast series. And it was funny. The more expensive the brand, the 0 I got, and the least expensive I got was the most interesting or surprising. So
that is interesting.
I thought Tesla would be quick to respond. Nothing. And then I put into Metamucil, and they were genuinely nice. It was a human, and they asked a couple of questions. I mean, that to me built some type of trust and relationship. And maybe look at the rest of the conversations in my Instagram DM feed, and I realized that out of those 10 brands and the 100 friends that I've been going back and forth with for the last 6 months, if those companies showed up in my DM profile with a nice message every once in a while, I would keep them top of mind. And I think that's the 100%. Power of what we don't know is the problem is the problem, And so my challenge to you for this next week is to go through your life and pick the 10 most expensive things and DM them, and pay them a compliment and see what you get in response.
See what happens. Yeah, I love that because often sometimes it can be hard to figure out what to do or what to do next. What do we want to do? What's the right strategy? But sometimes knowing what the opposite would be, like what would you need to do to guarantee failure? What would you not want to experience? Or we've all worked those jobs or had those clients, customers, patrons, you name it, where you're like, oh, I definitely learned what I don't want to do from that person, right? That can almost always be just as telling, if not more so, of a lesson. So I think it's a great exercise where we can go out there and hopefully we're pleasantly surprised and get a couple of responses that are warm and personal and make us feel a little more connected to those brands. But I certainly can see how it would be easy to probably have the opposite happen, whether you end up getting ghosted or the reply is just obviously sterile. So.
Yeah. I can't imagine like going to a restaurant and spending $500 on dinner with my wife for an anniversary and getting no thanks. You know what I mean? Like waiting for my bill and all they're doing is waiting for me to go to Yelp and praise them. Like right. Zero effort. Like you just got me for $500 tonight, my friend. Can you like give me a little bit of love? And you took a picture of the food and you promoted it on your Instagram page for me and I still showed zero interest in you.
Yeah, that's wild.
Ghosted. You know what I mean? Like
straight up ghosted.
I mean, at least ask me to come back for dinner, like
right.
Priority seating, couple number 2. But
they're like, the party can keep going, but it just can't be here. We gotta make room for the next one. Like, oh man, wow, okay.
Yeah, so I think it's I think we're in the right path of having a conversation about how to help the industry find its niche in engaging with guests. And really kind of exposing the problem for what it is, and right now it feels like the problem is not knowing the problem
Yeah. Yeah.
is the problem.
Exactly.
Not the
Yeah.
problem is not knowing the problem is the problem.
And or thinking that it's something else, thinking that it has to do with the menu or the design or how your staff is treating people. It's no, it starts at the top with what's the system that you're building to build, to cultivate connection and engagement, so that your staff isn't ghosting, so that you're not getting ghosted. And yeah, excited to dive into that more, but I don't know. I think that's the pod.
That's the pod.
That's the pod. All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.